Welcome to the discussion for Chapter 5. In Chapter 5, Raskolnikov is on his way to go see Razumihin. He doesn't really understand. He's kind of questioning. He's like, as he was at the end of Chapter 4, like, why would I even go see him? What do I think he's going to be able to do about my mom and my sister? But he determines that he's going to go, and then he is kind of rationally thinking it through. So his first instinct is to go, but then he thinks about it, which is like a pattern that we see, like first instinct and then further rationalizing. So his first instinct is to go to him. Then he says to himself, well, what is the most that he could do? He could maybe either get me a job, get me some tutoring lessons, help me get kind of back on my feet with lessons, and then maybe loan me some money so that I could get some boots so that I could look presentable to be a tutor again. But then he's like, but that's, even if I do that, that's, what's the most I'm going to make? It's kind of like he's back to that excuse that he was giving Nastasia, like, oh, what, for a few coppers? Like, what's that going to do? And he's thinking like, that's not going to help him with his situation. I mean, in his mind, he needs to make a considerable amount of money to help him get back on his feet, where he can like finish his degree, or he really needs to support his mother and his sister. I mean, that's what he really wants to do. He wants to have enough money that his sister doesn't feel like she needs to sacrifice herself and her future happiness by marrying this guy that she barely knows. So he's thinking, getting some tutoring lessons and a few coppers in my pocket is not going to be the answer to that situation. And so he's like, no, I'm going to wait until after it. And it is capitalized and italicized in the book, in the one that I'm reading. And it's referring to like after I kill the pawnbroker, like after that whole business of me dealing with the pawnbroker's over, then I'll go see him. Like then things will be settled. Like in his mind, this is all he's been thinking about, is this plan going over in his mind. And then he's kind of going back and forth. He's like, well, wait, when I went to go, through the experiment, is what he's referring to as his dry run, where he goes and he kind of like does a little walkthrough, his little reconnaissance, where he goes and he goes through the process of pawning his father's watch as a way to kind of like, case it out and see how it would work on that day that he came back to do it. And he's like, yeah, but when I at the end of me doing that, I realized that's ridiculous and it's disgusting and vile, and I would never do that. And I don't know what's wrong with me that I've been sitting around all this time thinking about doing this when it's something that I absolutely would never do. And he is like, I'm going to get something to eat and get something to drink. And he goes into a tavern and he has some vodka and like a meat pie. And the vodka really hits him hard because he hasn't had vodka in a while. And he also has been used to eating. And so it hits him quick. And he goes to walk home, but he just gets really overwhelmed with exhaustion. And he ends up just going kind of off into a bush and like laying down and sleeping it off there. And because of the alcohol and because he's also starting to feel feverish, he has this fever dream. And it's a very disturbing dream where he's brought back to a place that he knows from childhood, a place he's a child in the dream. He's back to being 7 years old with his father, and in a scene that he would have reenacted over and over again, walking with his father to go home. And seeing a scene off to the side, it was like kind of very barren area, but then there was a tavern on the outskirts, and it was always like, lights and ruckus and loud music. And he always had this like dread, this aversion to this place. And so he's walking again with his father and he's seeing it, but there's something really going on the outside that draws his attention. And as they get close, he sees that it's a man, Mikolka, who is drunk and wanting to make a big scene in front of all these other drunk people, and just very abusive to his horse, to the point that he kills the horse. And the whole time, Raskolnikov as a little boy is trying to stop this scene. He's crying out to his father and saying, make it, don't, make it stop. And he wants it to stop. And he's running to the horse and crying over this dead horse. At one point, somebody in the crowd, and the man who's beating the horse, Mikulka, is being egged on by the crowd. And at one point, somebody yells, get an axe. And it's very foreshadowing. This whole dream is it's a foreshadowing of what is the plans that Raskolnikov has to kill the pawnbroker. And he plans to do it with an axe. So there's this guy in the crowd saying, get an axe, which is a foreshadowing of that. But it shows you like the symbolism of what's happening. Raskolnikov walking with his father, and also talking about that there's a church in the distance, and remembering going to this church as a family, and visiting his mother's grave, and just this special feeling toward the church. This is all very symbolic of walking with God, a time in his life when he felt close to God, when he was with the church, and seeing and feeling horror against this scene of murder. And as a child saying, just totally rejecting it, like his first instinct is no, like make it stop. Like he wants to protect the horse. And even after the horse is dead, he's, holding it and kissing it and crying and, saying to his father, why did they have to do that? And so his instinct and his childlike innocence in the inside of him thinks this is an abhorrent scene, but yet this is like what he's been plotting in his mind to do to the pawnbroker. He's been plotting to go to her house with an axe and hit her until she's dead, which is what happens to this horse. They beat her until she's dead. And so it's like his inner, I feel like the child represents his inner spirit, like the spirit, the child that God created. And as that is his true nature. And he's rejecting that scene of horror and murder. And he sees it for like the vile and abhorrent picture that it is. And then he wakes up and he's so disturbed. And it's like the Holy Spirit has sent this dream to warn him, to show him very starkly the black and white, the child who's walking with his father and who's walking toward the church, and who has these, his heart is very toward the church and the family and those memories, and like how that is juxtaposed with this horrific scene that he's just watched. And it's like the Holy Spirit saying, this is your choice to choose. Like, this is the moment where you're going to use your free will, and just showing like spiritually, the black and white of it. And so he wakes up and he actually says a prayer. He says, basically he prays to God, and he's just like, asks to be released from that dream. And he feels this sense of peace. Like it's like that whole business is finished. Like this whole idea of murdering this pawnbroker, he's like, okay, it was kind of like once and for all. Like he just basically is like, I'm done with that whole thought process. Like that's over. Like that's just in the past. Like I'm not even thinking about that anymore. And he goes to walk home. And again, like how he has been in all these chapters, he's just wandering the streets. He doesn't really have anywhere to be anytime soon. And so he goes a way that he says that it wasn't the shortest way home. It was an out of the way to get back home, but it takes him through the Haymarket, where all of the vendors are out in the streets in their carts selling their wares. And it's actually the end of the day. They're wrapping up for the day. And he said that it was like this don't want to call it providential because that sounds like it's from the Lord, but it's like it's like he's just come off this dream where it's warning, and it's almost like Satan says, well, let me put this other path before you. It's like another path before you. Like you just rejected it, but like here's one more, path for you to take. And he comes upon the pawnbroker's sister, Lizaveta, talking to a couple of the merchants and them saying, hey, yeah, come around at 7 o'clock tomorrow. So-and-so is going to be here. We'll put on some tea. We'll all talk it over. It's like a meeting, or I don't know what they're trying to do. But they're inviting her to be there the next night at 7. And Lizaveta's like, should I come? And they're like, yeah, come around. She's like, okay. She seems kind of reluctant, but she's like, yeah, okay, I'll come. And so Raskolnikov walks by just at this moment, and he realizes, so the only person that would have been maybe this, outlier as far as like possibly being home, and when he would go to murder the pawnbroker, he knows for a fact she will not be home at 7 p.m. the next day. And he's like, what are this is like a golden opportunity, like for anyone who would want to kill the pawnbroker, like just knowing that she will be home alone. He already knows that the tenant across the way from her has moved out, so that whole top floor will be empty. And then the sister, now he knows, will be gone. And he's like, it's like an open invitation. Of course it is. Satan is like, hey, no, don't put down those, ideas and dreams just yet. Like, no, here's your open opportunity, and you've got a, kind of like a free reign here. Once you get up to that 4th floor, she's going to be alone. And so now he's got 2 doors before him. He basically just told God that he was done with it, and that he, was like saying, it's like, I want to say the exact wording because it was actually pretty interesting what he says. Let me just look it up. He says, it says he felt he had cast off that fearful burden that had so long been weighing upon him, and all at once there was a sense of relief and peace in his soul. Lord, he prayed, show me my path. I renounce that accursed dream of mine. And what he's saying with that he renounces the accursed dream is the idea that he would kill this woman. And he's like, show me my path. But then Satan also shows him a path. And now he has a choice. And he's going to make a choice. And we will find that out in chapter 6. So stay with me and keep reading in chapter 6. I will see you there.